Hi, my name is Jacob Judice, and today I'm going to be providing evidence on both sides of the spectrum for a topic that is constantly under discussion. This topic itself is a biological basis on same-sex attraction, or same-sex sexuality. Now, this can mean all sorts of things or go in many different directions, so for now, I'm going to stick to the idea of same-sex attraction in a human populace, and specifically how changes in apprehensions and opinions on this topic would change in the health and medical field. Now, it's a very complicated issue. There's not a whole lot of traditional research or evidence that's able to back a standpoint of this. Research into same-sex attraction and issues of sexuality have only been around within the past century or so, and that's giving a lot of leeway to that. Nonetheless, it's an issue that can be discussed with certain studies that have tried answering questions revolving around this issue. Now, sexuality and same-sex attraction is a complicated idea that has had troubles throughout most of modern history, specifically in finding scientific explanations or scientific evidence in defining it. But for the sake of this discussion, let's put this into perspective of how much the world would change, opinions would change, surrounding this topic if same-sex attraction had a biological basis. Let's start off on the side of those who say yes, there is a biological basis. Now, there are a few pros that could come into this, and studies have shown, specifically Peter S. Behrman and Hannah Bruckner have discussed genetic findings among twins that there is a certain proclivity between the two. Now, if one of the twins of this pair, it doesn't matter if it's identical or non-identical, because it all has to do with genetics. If one of these twins were to be shown that they had a proclivity towards same-sex attraction, it is most likely to be shown that the other also has a proclivity towards same-sex attraction. So this gives possible evidence into what would happen if there was a biological or a genetic basis. For starters, medical education would further change and accommodate to these new findings. That's nothing new, though. But it could also fuel additional research into this specific field. If there was a 100% yes approval guarantee that same-sex attraction had a biological basis, then that would give more of a backing, more of a proclivity towards those who want to study further into topics surrounding this. This could also aid in treatment options, depending on an individual if they're known to have same-sex attraction or be within that category, then it's possible that their treatments can be more specified. There are a couple cons to this, though, as well. For starters, labeling for people, children, anyone, can have very detrimental consequences towards them, specifically in their mental health, of course. But if licensed medical professionals, individuals who usually have a large standing and a very good understanding of how much their influence can affect individuals, if the medical field and the health field decide to say that same-sex attraction has a biological basis, and yes, you can be defined at birth, early on in childhood, in your adulthood, to be same-sex attraction, those who don't identify as that or don't want to or don't feel those things will obviously have apprehension towards it. So there's that going for it. There is also the difficulty in genetics. If the biological basis were to be said as something that can be found within your genetics, or something that can be genetically tested, then that goes into question whether or not a doctor can be allowed to genetically manipulate someone either before they're born or even after they're born to make sure that they either have or do not have these markers, these identifiers of same-sex attraction. Now, not going into the legal, ethical, or moral side of these, this could be a very large, very difficult side of taking that there is a biological basis for same-sex attraction. Now, if we go to the other side, that no, there is no biological basis for same-sex attraction, there are pros to this. For one thing, this could uphold many of the opposite sides of things, societally, socially, that it's more of a choice. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about in the medical and health field. And saying, no, the pros keep this outside of the medical field. It keeps it away from interfering in something that is now no longer inside of their purview, you would say. Now, there would be no major differences in policy or medical laws derived specifically because of this. Because same-sex attraction does not have a biological basis, policies and laws specifically for hospitals or further medical education would no longer have a true statement in this, because they no longer have a say in what is same-sex attraction and how do they define it. There's a very good article by Lynn Wardle that talks a lot about this in the legislature behind medical treatments of same-sex attraction. They talk a lot about SOCE laws, which are laws that are specifically sexual orientation change efforts, both in good and bad ways. There's several different types on the spectrum. They talk about the restriction of treatment options and restricting parents' ability to have a voice in medical advice for their child. But this also goes into the con side of this, including on Lynn Wardle's ideas of this and them talking about these studies going into legislature and treatment, would be talking about these SOCE laws. They would most likely include now different treatment options as full medical procedures or medical advice towards different things. Now, this can be conversion therapy or specific medications or completely outlawing certain things from being used in the medical field because of this basis. It could also be that complete medical advice and advisors are now forced to change their standings on topics for those that still ascribe to same-sex attraction, that now there is no longer at all any type of biological basis within same-sex attraction. So their advice and whatever can be given to those who still ascribe to same-sex attraction now has to be completely changed. And this can also include hospitals or private facilities refusing services, specifically because of different laws or policies, for one thing, but even besides that, just their own rights and beliefs that could become more forefront for refusing complete services. And so, in conclusion, if there was a biological basis for same-sex attraction, there would be benefits and consequences no matter which side you go on, no matter which side you would decide to do it. And specifically in the medical field, this could be complete changes to an individual's lives. So it should be further discussed and studied before a true definition of whether or not same-sex attraction has a biological basis is completely founded or is completely stated to be concrete.